I think my TV is picking up alien transmissions. Written by Drake Kooper and narrated by Lady Spookaria. Time to hit up some yard sales, I scream to Wayne, my husband, as he groggily pulls himself out of bed on a Saturday morning. Damn it, Jen. How the hell are you so cheerful this early? It's so annoying, Wayne said as he rubs the crust from his eyes. Fresh pot of coffee is ready for you. I looked at the yard sale groups on Facebook and found some close. We need to go soon before all the good stuff is gone. I throw him a clean shirt. Come on, get dressed. He reluctantly pulls a shirt over his head. His still groggy mind has trouble finding one of the armholes. It's like watching my toddler put on a shirt for the first time by himself. Good stuff? It's a yard sale. They're trying to get rid of their junk. There is no good stuff, he says, finally finding the right hole to slide his arm into. After sucking down 2 cups of coffee, Wayne is finally done dragging around. We load up and head out to the nearest yard sale. It's about a 20-minute drive. Wayne complains the entire ride about wasting time sifting through other people's junk. I smack Wayne's shoulder to get his attention and point at the house. This is a nice house. Their junk must be worth something. He lets out a grunt. We may have gotten lucky with this one. We'll see. The yard is full of those plastic fold-out tables filled with all kinds of goodies. Not 5 minutes in, and I have an armful of knickknacks and a few horror novels. One is The Third Parent, by Elias Witherow, one of my favorites. And I can't wait to get home and crack it open. Wayne is just walking around with his hands in his pockets, occasionally picking something up to inspect it, only to set it back down again. Then he stops dead in his tracks and peers off to the edge of the yard, near the last folding table. What are you looking at? I ask. Do you see something you like? Maybe, is all he says as he starts a fast-paced walk over to the area. He was looking. Beside the table was a large antenna. She's beautiful, ain't she? Wayne says as he carefully looks the antenna over. He has always been into CB radios, something Wayne picked up from his uncle at a young age. Recently, he has gotten into TV antennas, tired of paying such high cable bills. He is doing what he can to cut the cord. This is much better than the one we have at home. Do you know how many channels we can pick up with this thing? We pay for our things and hit up a few more yard sale spots before heading home. Wayne can barely contain his excitement as he rounds up his tools and climbs onto the roof to install his new toy. After a while, I fix some lemonade to take up to him. Perfect timing by me, as Wayne climbs down his extension ladder. He takes a few steps back, places one hand on his hip, and wipes away the sweat from his forehead with the other. The summer heat is scorching as it beats down on our backs. He glares up at the new addition to our house. A long-range, high-definition TV antenna. A big eyesore to me. But it's something small that will make him happy. Let's go check it out, he says as he runs up the steps into our house. I followed behind, walking into a refreshing blast of cool air from our air-conditioned home. It instantly starts to dry the sweat from the blistering summer heat. My thoughts of air conditioning being the greatest invention the earth has ever seen are interrupted by Wayne's outburst. Babe! Babe, look at this! We're getting local channels from Atlanta and Nashville. This is amazing! So exciting. Now we can see what the weather will be like 200 miles away in Atlanta, I say sarcastically. It's weird. What seems to get people off can be so drastically different. Art, clothes, cars, and apparently TV antennas. Later that night, We are cuddled up on the couch watching the news. The broadcast is interrupted as the screen fills with static. The static only lasts a few seconds before the screen fills with a foreign landscape. I don't mean foreign like another country. It's like no place I've ever seen before. The sky was a creamy purple. The setting sun hit the underside of the clouds, putting off a pink glow. The swirl of pink and white clouds with a purple backdrop was stunning. The trees had the first glance impression of a giant blue mushroom. They were square, and the bark smoothed up to the branches. The branches then jutted out like veins, topped with light blue leaves. The grass was the same blue as the leaf. The landscape looked like a beautiful real-life version of something you would see in a children's coloring book. The woman speaking to the camera looked a lot like your everyday person with a few unique features. The nose was smooth, with 2 small slits for nostrils. Just below her hairline were 2 antennas about 6 inches long that struck upwards into the air. Her eyes were slightly larger and more round than normal humans. The pupils were exactly what you picture when someone says big puppy dog eyes. She spoke in a series of noise that sounded like no earthly language I'd ever heard before. It was a language like what you would imagine a tribe deep in the Amazon and never had any human contact outside themselves would speak. After about 20 seconds, the static returned for a brief second and then back to the local news. Speechless for a moment, Wayne and I looking at each other slack-jawed and eyebrows raised. What the hell was that? I finally find the words I couldn't manage to spit out a few moments ago. A prank, I'm sure, Wayne said, sounding uncertain of his own words. I didn't think much else about it until it happened again the next night. The same landscape with that same alien woman. She was just standing there with wide eyes, looking into space. When she finally snapped out of her trance, she was fidgety with her hands. Her voice sounded panicked. She was still speaking in that same unknown language. The camera pans 180 degrees, and I can see a dark oval in the sky. As the camera focused, I could make out details in the object hovering over the sky. It was long, sleek, and solid black. It had wings, and 2 tail fins similar to planes here in the real world. It never moved, just hovered silently. The camera pans back to the woman. She looks at the camera, taking short, shallow breaths. You can see the fear in her eyes. She says a few words I can't understand before the static returns, followed shortly by our local news. Hacking a news feed for a prank is nothing new, so I set to the internet to find out what was going on. After hours of deep diving the web, I couldn't find anything. Even the local news station was oblivious to the fact some prankster had hacked their weather report. I called, and they told me I was the only person to report such a disturbance in the newsfeed. Frustrated, I couldn't find the prank source. I tried to put it out of my mind. Weeks go by with nothing happening out of the ordinary. The frustration fades, and it begins to become a distant memory. Through my research, I came across a radio broadcast. The broadcast was an adaptation of the novel War of the Worlds, and the broadcast caused mass panic. This seems to be the situation, except my household appears to be the only one experiencing this prank. Wayne and I sit anxiously in front of the television the next night, awaiting our special broadcast. Right on time, it appears. No woman reporter this time. Just a shot of a city I can only compare to the likes of New York City. Skyscrapers jut up into the creamy purple sky. 10 of those black flying objects are flying over the city. No longer hovering, but silently moving over the city now. As they move over the city, they begin to speed up and drop objects in random spurts. Each spurt comes in 3-second intervals. They were dropping 15 to 30 of the things at once. As these objects began making contact with the ground and buildings, it becomes apparent what they were. They're bombs. Hundreds of tiny explosions erupt, taking out the smaller buildings immediately. Only the skyscrapers are left standing in the shambles. The city looks to be evacuated, but still, sirens blare in a failed attempt to warn anyone. Sirens blare in a failed attempt to warn anyone that had decided not to leave. If anyone had stayed behind, I can't imagine them making out of this alive. After only a few minutes, the onslaught was over. Most of the city reduced to a smoldering pile of rubble. Just like before, the screen fills with static and back to our local news. I call the police. They repeat what everyone else tells me. Some pranksters saw our oversized antenna, and they're sending us a feed to screw with us. They told us to ignore it, and the prankster would soon get bored and leave us alone. I don't believe them at this point. I've never seen anything like this before, and it's much too high quality for some prankster to be making movie quality scenes like this. It doesn't take long for the feed to appear again. It happened the very next night. This time, the beautiful purple sky was filled with thousands of black specks. Those flying objects look very similar to a stealth plane. I've done a lot of research since the first signals came across, and they look like F-117 Nighthawks, to be exact. Except, they would hover perfectly still like a helicopter, but with no rotor blades and silent. The camera pans to the familiar face of the lady. From the first two interfaces. This time, her big eyes are red and puffy as tears roll down her face. Her once stiff antennas hung limply over her face. She said nothing this time. The only sounds are the sobs that occasionally escape her lips. She lets out a shocked gasp before dropping the camera. The video feed goes black as it drops face down into the light blue grass. I can hear her screaming in the background, along with the sounds of her struggling. A thud can be heard. I can only imagine it's the sound of a blunt object smashing into the lady's skull as the screaming immediately stops. I can hear now footsteps approaching the camera. The camera is picked up by someone that keeps themselves unknown. A blurred version of the lady clears up as the camera slowly comes into focus. She's sitting upright on the ground, with her hands presumably tied behind her back. Dazed, she raised her head to reveal a gash above her right eye. A stream of blood runs down the contours of her face. The camera zooms in close. Now you can see the fear in her eyes as a pair of camouflage pants walks into view. A man kneels beside her. He looks familiar. Not that I know him personally, but in the way he looks like me, instead of the alien woman sitting on the ground. That's when I notice a patch on his chest that reads, US Air Force. Then he speaks to her in a language I can understand perfectly. Your kind is weak. This is only the beginning. This is our planet now. The man then places a pistol on the side of the woman's head. And then... static. I grab Wayne's hand and squeeze. We stare at each other silently before I bury my head in his chest. It's not real, babe. It's just a prank, Wayne said as he caressed my hair, trying to comfort me. I want to believe that this is an elaborate prank, but part of me can't help but feel sorry for the woman in the video. The local news comes back on, and that's when I hear the reporter say something that sent chills down my spine. In other news, scientists have discovered a planet in a neighboring solar system, one that they believe has an Earth-like atmosphere and could potentially be habitable and support life. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please do yourself a favor and check out Drake Kooper's Reddit page. All of his links are in the description below. This video was made with the support of my Patreons. If you would like to join their ranks, consider signing up and get special perks. I also have channel memberships available. Consider joining if you're interested. I also have some amazing merch. These are extra ways you can support me. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe and hit the bell if you haven't already. Stay safe, my little spooklings. And remember, I'll be watching you.